Hi. So gonna continue along here. Story time with me, Tree. In the last video, I talked about how when I was 14 months old, I had this experience. You could call it a soul recollection, an experience that changed my life. Or maybe that's exactly how it was all planned. So I recollect much of my life since then. So that was in the summer of 1989, and we are now about to be in the summer of 2026. So I was 14 months old then. I'm 38 now. Speaking of the summer of 1989, side note, in the show Stranger Things, it is, for one, in Indiana. The one of the most interesting locations when it comes to the lore and different shows and movies that involve it. But also the show ends in the summer of 1989. And I thought that was funny. Spoiler alert, sorry. So I felt so mentally overwhelmed. And I'm looking at some of my notes that I wrote. So overly sensory stimulated. And, I couldn't speak. I was having this whole world go on, visuals, memories, ideologies, ideas, thoughts. And at the same time that I was experiencing that as myself, it's like I was also this observer self, and I was very concerned with this overload and how it might affect my psyche as time went on. Um, I was concerned that it was too much for a baby to handle, which made me feel even more overwhelmed, maybe even crazy. I was worried that I wouldn't make it to 2020. Whatever 2020 was, I was like, I don't know. Every day is pretty hard. It's pretty hard, and I know I'm a baby, so yeah, I thought I would go crazy or go insane, which is interesting because we are, as of this year, in what I call Mad Hatter times. We've been in them, but almost like we've been preparing for them, and this is the first true year of Mad Hattery. Which might sound strange, but this is based on my opinion. Yeah, I was mad. I was mad that I was a baby. And I kept being like, I must have messed something up. Like, why else would I be having this feeling like I'm being tortured? At the same time, in the second video, I mentioned how the first night that I had this like realization or awakening experience, that night, I was sort of flooded with memories that were what one might call collective or ancestral or my own past lives. I wasn't sure. I said, how do I know these are just memories or were these real experiences? I don't know. And so I didn't have the word for karma, but I did witness some things in those nightmares or dreams that made me go, I feel like I've done some not so great stuff. So I wasn't sure the boundary between me as an individual and what that might even mean to have another life or a past life because I am Teresa in this life. I would not be that in another life. I would not be me in another life in the same exact way. And so I was having just a lot of overwhelm and stress about all this stuff I was thinking about. I was confused about identity. Am I a little girl? I don't feel like a little girl, but I do. Am I an old man? Um, my family felt like they were under spells, is what I would intuit it as. That's just, I didn't, I thought, man, everybody's under these spells. And it's like you got to say certain words to break them from it. But I couldn't speak yet. I felt like I could only do so much. And there wasn't telepathy, like I had mentioned before as well. So I, spent day to day sort of like trying to find anyone to talk to. But I really knew as a baby was my family, including my cousins, but everyone was older than me. And so I was like, maybe when I meet other people my age, other 1988 babies, They will get me. Our telepathy will sync up. But there were two past lives that I would say maybe that I remember or recollected back then. My only friends. One was an African man, or is, one a Chinese man, always giving me advice and helping me. It all felt overwhelming, but it all made sense. I just didn't like it. I still don't like a lot of it. I felt really, really big, like I was a mountain or I was the sky or more. And then I also felt like a tiny speck of dust. I felt connected to everyone and everything. Like I was hypersensitive and seeing things and seeing beings or people that other people were not seeing clearly. I hated people talking to me like I was a baby. I specifically do not speak to kids or younger people or babies in a certain way because I remember those years and I was like, oh, how rude. Plus, look, you don't have to like me or listen to what I'm saying, but whatever reincarnation is, whatever these cycles are here, we're not all at the same point. So there could be babies that are older than you and wiser than you. It's not about linear things, but there's something to uh something. What do I know though? I would call this experience of me feeling like I had all these energies I was connected to in some way that I knew, even though it was hard for me to tell certain boundaries, I knew certain energies were connected to me, and I would call them the many me's. I still do. I've always checked in with myself, a holographic being, if you will. And rather than read books or follow anyone, I've just sort of tried to figure out my own thing here to some degree. So after some time, I think it's about 3 years old when you go to preschool. So I'm not going to tell you about every single year of my life, but I do want to do a linear story thread of sorts. So we jump from Indiana. I'm 14 months old, and then I'm back in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm around 3 or whatever, going to preschool. And I'm like, oh, I'm finally gonna talk to people. I'm gonna get to talk to people who know what I'm talking about. Uh, I was like, if I can meet at least one person who gets me, this is gonna be great. And there's something to recognizing people at some other level. We can see each other, but then there's like an energy or a soul level or whatever you might call it. And there was this gym teacher at the school that I went to, and her name was Miss Teresa. My name is Teresa. And I recognized her, not who she looked like, but her energy. And I would sneak out of my class, and this would go on for years, but it started in preschool. I would sneak out. I'd be like, I am invisible. And I'd go see Miss Teresa. And I remember saying to her, like, isn't it funny? We're both named Teresa, so we could more easily find each other. But what makes me laugh is that I'm older than you, but you're older than me here. And she would be like, please go back to your classroom. But yeah, that first week of preschool, I was like, hey guys, where are you here for the Earth mission? What's up? And they were like, you're the weirdest person I've ever met. And that's how it went. There was not a one person who was like, hey, buddy, yeah, this is the link up. And that is why I had to rely on getting through to Miss Teresa, but it did not work. It did not happen. So all I really had, sorry, I had an alarm going off. All I've really had at that point was what I would call these other lives to be my friends or whoever I could talk to. I didn't have anybody to talk to about any of the things I thought about really. And so I'm gonna wrap this story up here. And next we're gonna get into some different layers of things that I was experiencing with my family. And I'm just gonna keep going for as long as I'm gonna go. Bye.